Are you looking for an athletic scholarship? You're in the right place. This is the Recruit Me Athletic Scholarship Podcast, the longest running podcast on recruiting and athletic scholarships. We're here to help your family navigate the recruiting road all the way to an athletic scholarship. He's a recruiting expert and a dad of 2 college athletes. He has a wealth of experience to share. Here's Recruit Me CEO, Brent Hanks.
Welcome to episode 444 of the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. This is part 2 of a 2-part interview with Jay Spoonhour. Jay coached college basketball for 30 years and is now the Assistant Athletics Development Director for Missouri State University. Basically, he oversees the Name, Image, and Likeness Program, NIL, at the NCAA Division I Mid-Major Missouri State in Springfield, Missouri. Go back and listen to last week's episode 443, where we cover a lot of information about NIL. Today we hit on information about the transfer portal, levels of college play, junior college eligibility, and Jay's look at how he recruited as a coach and how his children were recruited. This episode is a little longer than normal, so let's get into part 2 of the interview with Jay Spoonhour. So you mentioned the ever-changing college athletic arena. Not only do we have NIL that has changed, we have the transfer portal and then new roster and scholarship rules and limits. And then possibly JUCO years not taking away from your 4-year eligibility. How are we going to handle all this?
Those are all huge topics too. It's just an amazing thing about all of the things that are changing. And I know that we're talking to parents of kids that are, getting close. I've been in this my whole life, and I can't give you a prediction on what it's going to do. I know that the impact the portal has had is that if I'm a recruiter, and I have been a recruiter, and I have to choose between an 18-year-old kid who doesn't even have black hair on his legs or a 24-year-old guy who's played 100 games, I know who I'm taking. That's just a reality. So what's happened is the elite high school players are still getting recruited. There's just way fewer guys and gals that are now going to a mid-major level. And when I'm speaking on this, I'm talking about what I know the best, which is men's basketball. I don't know if it's the exact same in women's, because I know we have women's players, the parents that are listening. So I don't know that for sure. My guess is that portal hasn't impacted it as much, but I think it probably will. What you have now, you have free agency among everybody in college sports. When people, for the most part, get into the portal, they're doing it as a vehicle for free agency. They're wanting to see what their worth is. And if I'm making 0 at one school, I wonder what I can get if I put my name in. I had a good year. I have some video. I'm a good player. I wonder what I can get. It really impacts the high school kids. My thing that I've always say to everybody that I talk to is don't get discouraged. In the years past, you'd see a high school kid play football or basketball or whatever, and you'd go, oh, he's D1. Or how many offers does he have? And now nobody's getting any offers. Overnight, that all dried up. If you're a good player, don't let it discourage you that you're not getting a bunch of offers like kids did in the past. Just keep getting better. Keep working and getting better. And if you get an offer, don't do like kids were doing for a while and treating it like the old gunslingers would put a notch on their belt for every guy they killed in the Westerns. Guys were collecting offers like they were butterflies and showing off. If you get an offer now, shoot, if you think you like the place, accept it. If you think you like it, don't wait around. There are a whole bunch of people you're competing with for that spot. If you're a good player, get on the roster and prove yourself. That's the best way. So I think you're going to see more and more kids starting at Division II level, NAIA level, and then if they're happy, they can stay, or they can, if they want to move on, they can. It's become an accepted practice. I think a good junior college is now great because if it happens, man, those years may not count. And you may be able to, as a business move, let's say you're a baseball player and you go 2 years, you get better at hitting at a JUCO. It hasn't happened yet, but there's a chance that you come out of the JUCO after 2 years as a 20-year-old and you're still going to be a freshman. That may be happening. I don't know if it will or not, but there's a chance. It could be the thing that brings junior college baseball and basketball really back.
You've coached in a junior college. Your dad was a Hall of Fame junior college coach, I think. You've been at Division II. Tell the kids and the families what the level of play is at those levels. There are very, very good NAIA junior college Division II teams and players, and then there are very bad ones too. But like you said, get on the field, get on the court, prove yourself, and then you have more of a way to move up now.
things change so much, and like little rule changes here and there. We're dealing with huge rule changes, so it's hard for me to predict what it's going to look like. But I think what you're going to see is more and more, for the most part, non-qualifiers are the kids that went to junior college. I had at one point when I was at Moberly, I had the number one player in the country. He had signed at Oklahoma State. But he didn't have the grades to get in. This guy was a McDonald's All-American. Like, he was an NBA level pro, like lottery pick level athlete. And then I also had a kid on that same team from Moberly High School that averaged 4 a game. So the difference in talent is crazy sometimes in JUCO. That could be changing to where you get more non-qualifiers. Like, if you are a kid who is a good student, but you're also a good player, junior college is probably never something you thought about because it was something that only non-qualifiers did. Well, I'm here to tell you there's a whole bunch of really good junior colleges, and I think that the level, it's good because it's a good experience. You have to learn to live in a dorm. You have to learn how to cook for yourself, all the things that you do in college. Junior college was always great for that. And there's some that are so nice. I mean, like, golly, I think about my friend Rand Chappell, who's at Johnson County.
Johnson County is a great campus.
Well, it's unbelievable. There's 30,000 students at Johnson County, and it's in an affluent part of Overland Park, Kansas City. Like, it's a great place. And so I think the kinds of players that Johnson County's had in the past were mostly non-qualifiers, and I think it could be changing. I think you could have kids that were 3.5 students. You can still take great classes at junior college. You don't have to be there because you didn't qualify. And I don't want to even say yet that those years aren't going to count. But I mean, my guys, they've already said that the kid from Vanderbilt can come back and play. So there's options that if you want to play, you can still go play. It's just not quite what it's been in the past. It may be that you go to a Division II, an NAIA or a JUCO, and you just keep getting better. To me, that's the key to everything.
Sutton, my younger son's at Columbia College playing baseball, NAIA level, and he had a player that started out, he's from Australia, started out at a junior college in Iowa, played 2 years at Columbia College, was one of the nation's leading home run hitters in NAIA across the country, and he's now at Mizzou. So he has performed well at an NAIA level, and he's now going to try to cut the roster at Missouri. So it can happen if you prove yourself, and he found a way to prove himself.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, we tend to say, well, I am whatever I am when I'm coming out of high school. And you sort of get labeled as, hey, you're this many stars, or you're a mid-major, or you're a whatever. And what it doesn't take into account is that a lot of kids are still growing when they get into college. And then there's a lot of kids that stop working. The goal for a lot of kids, you wouldn't believe how much this happens. The goal to them was making it to Division I, or the goal was to be a college ball player. And then they get to college and they discover sororities and they discover parties, and they don't work like they used to work. They settle in and they get comfortable. And the thing I'm going to tell you, like, which is fine too, honestly, like, nothing says you have to just be gung ho all the time. If you want to just enjoy your career, you can do that. But if you keep getting better, continue to get better, and try to envision what kind of player you're going to be at the age of 26 years old. And we may be still watching you in college. I'm kind of not joking. Like,
yeah,
chance that the whole format might change to where older people are playing in college now. But if you continue to lift weights, work, get better at your craft, whatever it is, you may be a pro at some level if you just keep on trying.
Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills, he started at a junior college.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And you know what? It happens all the time. It doesn't even have to be a huge story like that. But, like, we can all remember kids that were in high school and you're like, oh, man, yeah, I didn't think he was that good.
Yeah.
And you watched him and you're like, oh, wow, he gained weight, he got better, whatever it is. Even if you don't have a huge growth spurt or whatever. I think about the other night, Ty Freeman from Parkview, and it was here 5 or 6 years ago at Hillcrest and Parkview. He was really a good player in high school, but he is like a seasoned pro now. And he's now at Illinois Chicago, and he came in and had 18 points the other night, and he looks like the type of guy that could have a really long career as a pro. Maybe not NBA pro, but that guy, if he wants to, he could play for a long time. And that's a heck of a way to start your life.
His Parkview team knocked out Parker, my older son's team in Parker's senior year. And I said Ty Freeman decided he was a Division I player the second half of that game, and carried them past Ozark and carried him. I think they took him to the sectional estate that year just because he goes, oh, I'm a D1 player. Nobody can stop me.
Well, and then so his story, he had a knee injury.
Right.
He went to junior college. He then transferred to Central Florida. Like he's been at high level places and he's played against the very, very best. But even that, like a guy who you watch now is, I don't know how old he is. I think he's probably 23 or 4. You think that he's got it all figured out and things were always easy for him or whatever. But shoot, even as a high school senior, you don't dominate. Not everybody is a dominant guy.
Right.
Not everybody looks like a can't miss I mean, some people you're like, like if you had left at halftime or if some scout had left at halftime, they would have gone, oh yeah, Ty Freeman, he didn't get much done. He was, I'm not sure. He's a good athlete, but the same stuff that everybody always says. And the whole point is don't listen to people. Just try to think about listen to the people that you should listen to, but don't listen to all the noise.
And I talk to my families a lot about don't just play well and hope a coach comes and finds you. You got to go market yourself. And an example I use is a kid named Quinn Nelson. I've done an interview with him, and he played with Parker here at Ozark and played 5 years at SBU. He's like their all-time leading scorer, three-point shooter, and he's now playing overseas. He was getting recruited by some nice Division II teams, 6'3" shooter, and he averaged 25 points a game at the Tournament of Champions. Do you know how many new recruiting calls he got off averaging 25 points at the Tournament of Champions?
Well, you would think a lot, but not always, right?
He got none.
Yeah, I know.
And so I use that as an example to prove to people, you've got to go market yourself. You've got to go tell people, I want to play for you and find a place to play. And he did at SBU. He's a legend at SBU. He could have gone low-level Division I and probably not have had success. So he made the right choice, luckily. So
Brent, I used to say this all the time that, if you're a good player, people will find you. But again, talking about the rules, the NCAA changing the rules about AAU and where, the reason that he probably got no offers is because there probably weren't many college coaches at the tournament champions.
Right.
And the reason is, I think maybe in the past it was probably packed. But the reason is because they have cut the recruiting days down so much during the year that you see everybody in the summer at these big events. And they've sort of, with the rules they've created, they sort of engendered that. That's what they wanted because it saves money. But it is true that in basketball, I used to think, you'll be fine. And then I started realizing, shoot, I could, unless it was local, I very rarely, when I was a Division I head coach, I didn't go very far to watch guys.
Right.
You got too much going on with your own team. And the big boys can get on a plane and fly, like a private plane and get up and back, but most people aren't the big boys. That's the other thing is that coaches can also be wrong. Like you watch a guy, there aren't as many evaluators on college basketball staffs as there used to be because so much of this now is about just guys are coming in for 1 year and it's about getting the guy and knowing that he's probably transferring in a year if stuff doesn't work out. The hardest part used to be trying to evaluate. Is this high school kid, is his game going to play? Well, now you're taking guys out of the portal. It's easy to tell if his game's going to play because you're watching him play against DePaul. He had 12 points against Dayton. Like, you don't have to evaluate that. Anybody can tell that. You used to have to watch a guy and go, I don't know if he's tall enough or fast enough or can he get his shot off. Those days are done. And that's why, because if you're a high school kid and you're like, I don't know why they're not seeing, a lot of staffs don't have, they don't get into evaluating. They recruit, but they don't evaluate because it's sort of it's something that you don't need. You're going to do your recruiting out of the portal and you can judge that based on stats and video.
And I remember talking to you when you were at Eastern, and it was either you or Coach Chappell, your assistant coach, saying that you would work hard to get a freshman in. This is before the transfer portal new rules. You would work hard to get a freshman in. They would play a lot as a freshman, and then they would even sit out a year so they could go transfer up to another level of play or another school. So this transfer portal stuff's been going on for a while. The kids just don't have to pay a penalty for it like they used to.
It didn't happen that way to us. The coach prior to us, I can remember sitting with him watching a guy from Chicago, and he was I was at junior college at the time. The only Division I offer that this kid from Chicago had was Eastern Illinois, and he was really a good player. And I told the coach, I go, golly, this is in the regionals. I said, are you going to get that guy? That guy's a good player. And he said, we think we're the only ones. And 3 weeks later or a month later or whatever, I saw him at a prep school. The kid had decided to go to prep rather than go to Eastern Illinois. That sort of thing now is going to happen more. I don't think I'm going to be happy here. I'll go there. The deal that does happen, though, like at a place like EIU and with the portal, you're not putting in tricky plays. You're going to run stuff because you're probably having guys for 1 year. If a guy does really well at a low major, he's probably leaving. Talking about like coaches not always knowing what they're looking at. As a recruiter, you're wrong a lot. There's guys that worked out way better than I thought they would, and there's guys that I thought were really going to be good, and they just didn't. But I can tell you this happened to me so many times. I would go after a guy who had no Division I offers, but I thought he was good, or one of the guys on my staff thought they were good. The minute you offer them and the word gets out that he's got a D1 offer, 4 more D1 offers come in. It was uncanny how often it happened. And the reason is because people aren't always sure what they're looking at. All they need is just a little bit of verification that, oh, yeah, they think he's good. Let's offer him. You want to believe as a parent that all this stuff is, that everybody's got it all mapped out. It's a crapshoot on somebody.
Well, and going back to like your junior college coaching days, your Division II and Division I, when do you start looking at young men for men's basketball? What's kind of a timeline for those 3 levels?
Late in JUCO, you're looking at seniors. Whether you had to get high level play, like where I was when I was at Wabash Valley or when I was at Moberly, the expectation is you're going to win 30 games and you're going to win the national championship.
Right.
And so the level of guy you had to have, you were getting guys in July and August before the season started because they're trying to take their classes or finish up their test. So that was later. The higher the level, the earlier you're on them. So when I was at Missouri, we were on sophomores, freshmen sometimes. At a low major, maybe juniors, maybe. Honestly, like you had to wait. What you didn't want to do was spin your wheels and spend money for somebody that you couldn't get. So like it happened to me right away at Eastern Illinois. There was one of the first guys I really liked was a guy named Finke that was a really good player, no offers, right up the road from us. I was really the only one on him. And then he went to a camp in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Badgers elite camp. They offered him a scholarship. Well, once that happens, it's over for Eastern Illinois. You get blown out of the water on a deal like that. And so that's why you don't go after young guys very often, because you don't have the resources to do that. You might make calls or do whatever. But I think volleyball and women's basketball recruit much earlier. And I don't know for what reason, except I know they recruit the families more so than the guys do. Seems to be anyway.
And I think the ladies are more mature in high school than the boys are.
Well, there's no question about that. For most people, you get nervous because it's your junior year and you're really playing good and you haven't gotten any attention. And I'll just tell you, it's going to start happening more and more. And it's difficult to tell you, don't get discouraged or don't get nervous. But you talk about this all the time. You have to market yourself and you have to be pretty honest with what level you think you could play at. These days, it doesn't do you any, unless you want to stay at a place, it doesn't do you any good to go sit on the bench and wait your turn, because the roster that you're looking at is not going to be there next year. Now, someone that would go in and stay actually now you actually have a lot of value because you're a returner and you know more than these new guys coming in. But it's just so uncertain as to what they're going to get. They could bring in 3 guys at your position. You just don't know. If you have kids right now, it can't be a more difficult time.
Kind of going back to what you're talking about on when you started looking at kids, junior college, again, Division II, Division I, are you looking at size? Are you looking at quickness, talent? We're mainly talking basketball with our background, but what are you kind of looking for as you start getting on a kid?
All these things they're trying to go to measurables on darn near everything, right? So football's always been about measurables, the pro combines and all that stuff where they can say, here's your 40 time, here's this, we'll turn you into a football player. Their mode of recruiting is, you throw a blanket over it. Like if we get this many guys that have this 40 time, we're going to have a good secondary. It's the sort of thing where they were the first sport to really do it that way. Baseball became that for sure. Now with the gun and the spin rate stuff that they can measure, that's how that works. And I was never a proponent, as a fan. I thought there was too many numbers and all this stuff. And hey, I'm old school, and Whitey Herzog never knew what a spin rate was. But I will say this. I never knew why my kid got guys out when he was pitching. I just knew that nobody seems to hit him very hard.
Right.
I knew his ball moved. He got lots of pop-ups and lots of kind of weak contact. made sense on the weak contact, his hit two-seamer that runs in on a hitter and, hits him off the hands. But he's popping guys up all the time. Until he got on a Rapsodo deal, his spin rate for his four-seamer was off the charts, like really, really high, like professional pitcher level high. And what it means is that his fastball has life. That's what we used to say. His ball has, it jumps, it doesn't rise, but it has the impact of, like, it's got life. And people pop it up because they think it's belt level and it's actually just above their belly button. And the next thing you know, they're popping it up. So I've become a big fan of that because the Missouri State guys were like, yeah, here's why he pops them up. His spin rate's like 2,700, whatever number it was. So the numbers stuff really helps. And there's no way to really teach spin rate for baseball that I know of. But I know, like, if you hit the ball hard, the hard hit rate, that stuff matters. And so working on things like that are really good. The only thing I don't like guys working on is velocity. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm not a pitching coach either. So that I'll stay out of that. But I just think rearing back and throwing it into a mat as hard as you can, I don't know that I like that very much. Basketball they haven't been able to really use the measurables as much. You look at a guy and you're like, I don't think he's fast enough, but it was all opinion based. Maybe now they do with the cone drills and all that stuff, they can do it. But the thing that separates guys most of the time in basketball is speed. It's not so much size as it is speed.
Not as many measurables, and so that's why you've got to you give coaches that information verified. You can't just make stuff up and give coaches. They've also got to see you play either by video or in person to get a good feel for you, especially at basketball. Like I said, football and baseball have stats and metrics that can kind of get you there. The guys in baseball, and I think your son's like Parker was. I couldn't figure out how he got people out, but he did. And he threw strikes, and he wasn't getting recruited very hard because he didn't throw very hard. And I'm like, well, the idea is to get people out, right? So that was a frustrating part of our recruiting, and that's why finding the right place to go was important for him.
Yeah, that is it for sure, because you have to have, in a way, you have to really be fortunate. My kid was looking at going to a JUCO, Jeffco, that level of thing. He was a good student, but he was going to go to a JUCO level like that. And what he did, likely a little bit what you did, we called the coaches here and we got him into one of their camps. I wanted Gutton and Joey and the guys at Missouri State to take a look at him and just tell me what level that he should be thinking about.
Right.
Not thinking that he was going to be here, but they're like, hey, look, here, we think we would rather keep him here and let him do it. The point of this is I'm lucky in that I knew those guys, but I also did it with guys that I didn't know. I was calling junior colleges. We were living in St. Louis at the time. I called Jeffco. I called Moberly, everybody I could think of who had a baseball program. We just went to camps. You got to let them see them, because going to an event, like if you go to wherever it is folks go here, I don't know, where we were living, Indianapolis was a huge one. Mm-hmm. But you just got to get lucky that your kid hits the ball on the day that a scout's there, or that sometimes guys were there and my kid wasn't pitching. It's as easy as getting on the website. Everybody knows somebody that can get them to a spot where, be honest about where you think they should go. Understand that most people are using the portal now. So think lower, but JUCO, NAIA Division II, and you may go there and love it. And if you're good and you don't love it, transfer. Everybody accepts it now.
Like Quinn, he's kind of a legend in Bolivar, Missouri now. Would you rather be a legend at Bolivar, Missouri, or be just a guy at a mid-major someplace? Both of them are right.
There's nothing wrong with any of it. I think about the guys on the Missouri Tiger basketball team right now. I don't really know any of them, but like a bunch of them are from Kansas City and, are local, but they went away to prep schools.
Yeah.
And they went away. And so, and then, they have a guy that transferred from Duke and a guy that transferred from Indiana. Both of them are Kansas City guys, but they left their junior years. Maybe I may be wrong on this with when they left, but you can't hold that. You can't hold it against a guy. If you're going to be a basketball player, going to a place like IMG, if you're a real player, or going to Link Year Prep, or going to Sunrise Christian, if you're going to be a ball player, you will get better at those places and you will get seen. It'll help your brand. It all comes down to what your goal is. The other thing is that, like, their experience is what their experience has been. They've gotten to see the world. These kids got to live in Florida. One kid went to, gosh, you enroll at Duke.
Yeah.
You have that experience. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But then there's also the experience of, if you'd stayed in Kansas City and gone to Missouri, now you're you're Anthony Peeler. You're a guy who people see walking down the street and they go, oh man, that guy was really, because everybody saw you play growing up. I don't think there's a right and wrong. It's all a matter of what you want to do.
You've mentioned your kids. Tell us a little bit about your family and what your kids are doing.
Oldest daughter is getting ready to graduate this spring from Missouri State. She was on the track and cross country team. She started out in JUCO, thought a couple of different times that her career was over because she kept slowing down for whatever reason. And there's some measurables in track and field.
Yeah.
It's a clock, and that's it. Running is such a tricky thing because if you feel bad one day in a couple tenths of a second, and the next thing you know, you're not on the team. So
was she adopted, or where did she get the running gene?
Man, no kidding, right? Because I hated running. My wife, I probably should start with my wife. She was a collegiate soccer player, won 2 national championships in junior college. She was really a good soccer player. So she was fast. But Grace she's a runner, but she'll graduate this year. And then my son I was talking about earlier is Charlie, is a pitcher for Missouri State. I hope he can redshirt. He needs to redshirt. He did well in the fall, didn't blow anybody's doors off, but he did well enough. I think the coaches would like to redshirt him. It would be great. Like, that's another thing, is that you always want to watch your kid play, but a redshirt year is so good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to be good on the back end. I want to see how good, and that's what I told him when he was asking me about it. I said, son, you want to be good when you're 23. When you're 23, that's when you're having a chance to be a pro or having a chance to help Missouri State win a big game. You ain't going to help anybody win a big game right now. I mean, you're just not.
Win some midweeks, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's if it happens, great. Like if they need you and you can help, because I think this year's Bears team is going to be good. So
Yeah.
if he could get out there, that'd be terrific. My youngest son is a freshman in high school. He lives in St. Louis with his mom, going to the all boys. My wife likes the school at Vianney, and so
Yeah.
it was great for Charlie. And so we're gonna keep Sammy up there, and he's plays ball, plays soccer, plays basketball, plays baseball.
It's fun to get you back into the area. I tell people I think I used to take you home. You'd come to the gym, and Brian and I would take you to your house every so often after you got done with basketball, and got to watch you play a little bit in high school. And you had a successful college basketball career and successful coaching all through the years.
I never was very good, but I'm sort of like, because I grew a ton when I was in high school, and was really slow and skinny and bad. But I just kind of kept hanging around it. I wasn't even very good when I was in college. But by the time I was 24, which is how old I was when I was graduating, or 23, I actually wasn't half bad. I mean, I was good enough to be a starter and be all conference, honorable mention. That's the other thing, is just because I was pretty bad. You remember that. If you like playing, you just keep playing and hang in there.
Did you take charges like Coach Spoonhour did in practice?
It was the only thing I could do. I flopped. I watch people do it now, and I realize that that's what I looked like. And I hate to even see people I played against, because it's embarrassing. They just have no talent. And so you just do what you can to get on the floor. So I would wait for there to be 6 fouls in the game, and then I would make a face and flop and fall down and try to get to the free throw line.
Right.
It's a disgusting way to play the game.
I learned so much from being with your dad for my 4 years and being around the program. And, I always say, how did Scott Hickok start for Missouri State Bears, or SMS Bears back then? You don't have to be a super talent to play basketball in college. You just have to do little things right, and you can get on the floor. So
if you were surrounded by, the other thing that helped Scott was there were so many really good players around him.
Yeah, that Garland guy was pretty good.
Pretty good. So having a guy that wasn't going to fire up a bunch of shots, probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And being a guy who was smart enough to do everything that you're told. There's a talent in that too, because Scott Hickok would literally do everything that he was asked, and he would really do it as hard as you could do it.
Matter of fact, probably the biggest win was against BYU, and I think Scott basically made a steal that got Winston to hit a shot that took us into overtime. We ended up winning at it, but it was Scott's steal at the end that got us to that point.
Brent, that's the other thing. He was in the game at that time.
Yeah.
He was being a reliable guy. Like, it's one thing to be a guy who starts the game and you're out there just to sort of get the game started and move the ball and help facilitate. There's the end of the game on the road at BYU, and he's on the floor in the last 10 seconds because you knew he might get a hand on a ball. There's a talent in that for sure.
I need to get with you. I think we could write a book about Coach Spoonhour's any of his phrases and all his anecdotes that he told. So we might have to do that. We might make a couple dollars doing that.
I asked him when we were at St. Louis U if he would mic himself up on the bench, because he would say so many funny things. And I said, why don't we mic you and do it. And he goes, no, the minute you know that there's a microphone, you change who you are.
Yeah.
You'd be playing for the line, which he goes, at the time he goes, son, we've got a hard enough time just winning ball games. Why don't we just do that? And then he did need to write a book. When some of those stories get into print, it doesn't have quite the same, almost looks mean.
No, you can retell them, but it has to be kind of that personal face-to-face kind of retelling. So,
Yeah,
and then you can embellish it a little bit too.
It's probably best in all of our memories.
Give us a couple pieces of recruiting advice that you have for high schoolers from what your kids went through, and what you've done in the past and what you're seeing today. You can mix that all together and give us a couple pieces of advice.
Yeah, with the portal, don't get discouraged because college coaches are going after older guys. So the fact that you're not getting contacted doesn't necessarily mean it's because you're not a good player at that level. You just maybe haven't reached that level yet, and you want to keep getting better. Be honest with yourself about what level you think you can play at. And you'll find that there's really good players at every level. Schools you've never heard of in wherever, Oklahoma, or there's really good players everywhere. So you'll be challenged. And the other thing is just to market yourself. You have to be active. You don't have to totally be a salesman, but sit down and email, look up places you think you'd like to live or play, or people you see on TV and the way they play, and email the coaches and say, here's who I am. Here's some video. I'd be interested in coming by, and then drive over to their school. They don't see everybody. They can't see everybody. They need your help sometimes.
We appreciate that. I'm sure we're going to try to have you back on sometime because there's probably about 10 other subjects that we could talk about, but I appreciate your time.
Well, I'll do it anytime. And the other thing is that all this stuff could change within 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be some crazy rules that come down that could really change everything. The JUCO eligibility and all that stuff, it might be a huge shift in how high school kids go about it. So if something big happens, just call me back.
That'll be great. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this interview with Jay Spoonhour. We not only gave you some insight into college sports and recruiting, but we got to reminisce and mix in some helpful observations. Join me next week as you'll see how Recruit Me helps you save both time and money.